Good evening. Tonight we have with us two men who are going to go to Seoul and represent the United States in the World Olympic Games. Seated next to me is Mr. Ed Eyestone, who's a marathoner. Seated next to him is Mr. Doug Padilla, who runs the 5,000 meters. Congratulations to you both. There are 5 Utahns who'll go, and these are 2 of them. What are the United States chances in Seoul? Is it going to be like L.A.? Is it going to be tougher?
Well, obviously the Eastern Bloc countries are going to be competing there this time, Rod. So I think they will definitely be taking some of the medals away from us. In '84, we pretty much dominated or did very well. But with the Eastern Bloc countries there, I think you'll see them take some of those.
Some years with the Eastern Bloc countries there, we haven't done very well. Are we going to do well?
I think so. I think we will. We've got a good group. It's a strong group. Granted, I think we did perhaps a little better than we might have otherwise in '84, but I still think we're going to have some good performances.
You ran in '84 in L.A. and you finished, what, 7th, yeah?
Right, that's correct.
And as we were talking before, you were the first guy across the finish line who didn't break the Olympic record.
Yes, it was an unusual Olympic race in that the 2 Portuguese runners took it out very fast, at very close to world record pace, and as such, it was the fastest Olympic final ever.
Can you run as well in Seoul as you did in L.A., given that you have to go to Korea and eat strange food and breathe strange air and so forth?
It is going to be a little more difficult, and I think the inexperienced athlete is going to have more of a challenge than those people who are used to traveling and used to going through the culture change and the time zone changes. I think I can have a good performance. I've done it enough times that I should be used to the changes.
Can you win a medal?
I'd like to think I have the potential to do that.
Can you win the race?
I think the potential is there to do that also, if things go well.
Okay, is that the way to bet?
Probably not. No.
Can you win a medal?
Going into the Olympics, I think you've got to have that kind of attitude. They only do give 3 medals, and I think you've got to go into it wanting to get one of those medals. You know, there's the other sort of attitude where I'm going to play it safe. I'd like to finish in the top 10. That would be great for me. But I think you've really got to sometimes just throw caution to the wind and let the chips fall and go for an Olympic medal.
When one thinks of the marathon, one thinks of a bunch of guys running down the road and they are grimacing. And they are grimacing because it hurts. Does it hurt as much as it looks like it hurts?
Yeah, I do a lot of grimacing out there. It gets painful, especially after about the 20-mile mark. Those last 6 miles can be very painful, but it's something that I enjoy doing, you know, I'm looking forward to it. Every
race hurts? You always know you're going to go into a race, it's going to hurt.
Yeah, it's an occupational hazard, I guess you'd call it. You know, any time that you're pressing that envelope, you know, going as hard as you can, it's going to hurt.
Okay, you go, the first 20 miles don't hurt and the last 6 do, or when do you start?
Well, those initial early miles aren't near as painful as the last part of the marathon. I've been told that you can really divide the marathon into 2 equal halves, the first 20 miles and then the last 6 miles. And that's pretty true, really.
While you're running along, do you sort of monitor yourself? Well, let's see, my legs feel okay. Is that the sort of thing that you're thinking?
Yes, in a real sense you do. I like to associate, see what's going on, and try to kind of compare myself, how I'm feeling with those competitors around me, trying to gauge, you know, exactly how strong they are, if they're tiring or not. And that can kind of tell me if I want to make a move at a certain point or if I want to just sit behind and ride along.
You watch them, and you can tell if you can tell by looking at them if they've got a problem.
To a certain point. Obviously, if someone's bent over and is rubbing their side,
yeah, okay.
It's telling you
sitting on the ground is a clue.
Right. I mean, you can't actually look into their mind and get their innermost thoughts, but you can kind of gauge.
Do 5,000 meters hurt? That you guys run that very, very fast. I'm always impressed by, I think those guys, I mean, I come in and I'm watching TV and I look at that and I think, those guys are running half a mile. But they're not. They're running 3 miles. It looks as if they're running very hard.
I think any race over 200 meters is going to hurt. If it doesn't hurt, you can probably go faster. So yes, I think they all hurt.
Does it hurt? Have you run longer than 5,000? Is it true that the longer, the more it hurts, or is 5,000 sometimes the middle distances you have to run harder and there's more trouble in those?
I think the hurt is probably about the same. Just the difference is the longer the race, the longer you're going to hurt.
Tell us how you become a runner. How do you become a world-class track person?
Well, you've got to start out at the beginning just getting involved in races, and it's a matter of staying consistent in your training and paying the price.
Were you a high school star?
I had my share of success, but I wasn't a highly recruited athlete. No,
Did you win state wherever you went? Were you the best
No.
runner?
no, not by a long shot.
Okay, so you weren't an outstanding athlete that everyone said, my goodness, there's a future Olympian.
No, never.
Is it a matter of sticking with it and then you succeed, or is it a matter of you were a late bloomer and sticking with it?
Probably in my case, both. It took me a long time to grow up. I'm 31 now. People tell me I look younger than that. If I look 3 or 4 years younger than I do now, as a 19-year-old, I look like a 15-year-old. And so physically, I think that made me a late bloomer, so to speak.
Now, you're essentially a full-time runner, right? I mean, that's what you do. That's what you do for a living. That's your job. You get up every day and you go run.
It's our career, yes.
Some guys go to the office, you run.
Yeah.
How much do you run on a normal day?
Well, for the marathon, I run a little further than Doug does. I typically, in preparation for a marathon, do from 15 to 20 miles a day.
Okay, and you have a contract with Reebok?
Right.
And then what? When you win a race, under amateur rules, there's money that goes into a trust fund for you?
Exactly. Well, first of all, we can make money through our shoe contracts that we have, and then also we have our racing, the prize monies that we win, and also the appearance money that we occasionally get are funneled through a trust fund, and then we can pull out that money out of the trust fund as we need it to, buy a car, pay the mortgage, buy food for our table, whatever.
And you've got a contract with Nike, right?
Right.
So a good runner, a world-class runner, can get a shoe contract, and that'll sort of get him across, and then he can win some money. That'll be a living, and then he can win some money, and he can make a good living if he wins some races. Is that?
Perhaps. It depends. Some contracts, depending upon how well you're doing and how marketable the company feels you are and how beneficial you are to them, maybe you can get a contract that really will cover and pay for your living, and then anything beyond that is gravy, so to speak. But in a lot of cases, that's not true.
What can the best 5,000-meter person in the world make?
What can?
Yeah.
That's really hard to predict because
Can he make 100,000 a year?
if he's the personality of such and people feel like he's worth it, then that's certainly potential.
Okay, 250,000, is that a potential?
For selected individuals, that's probably true. If somebody,
Steve Scott, would he make $250,000?
I don't know, that's really hard to say.
Okay, but he might. I mean, that's within the realm. But the marathoners make that much?
Yeah, on a good year. I wouldn't say that you'd even have to be the best in the world to make 6 figures, and I think the best in the world has the capability of making maybe $250,000.
Okay, now this is amateur athletics, though. You have to do it within the rules. But is there any such thing as a professional
Maybe we
runner?
should point out that the word amateur has been removed. The IOC voted a few years ago to remove the word amateur, and now it's an eligible athlete.
Okay.
And so that's really a more accurate description.
Is there any such thing as a professional runner in the United States, or are you guys essentially professional runners?
I mean, if you look at our tax statements or whatever, you would say that we are professional
That's how you
runners.
make your living.
Yes.
You do it
Yeah,
full time and you
sure.
get money for it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay, and in fact, you can make a decent living. You don't make what professional basketball players make, but you make more than a lot of people make,
The potential is there. It all depends upon how well you're running
and how well you draw.
right.
It's like any athletic event. It's not the most stable job in the world, but when you're performing well, you can make a good living.
We're going to make a living here now. We're going to show you some commercials. Then we'll be back with 2 Utah Olympians. Our number is 973-3144 if you have a question or comment. We're back with Mr. Ed Eyestone, Mr. Doug Padilla. Mr. Eyestone's a marathoner. Mr. Padilla runs the 5,000 meters. They'll be leaving for Seoul, Korea, where they will represent the United States in the World Olympic Games. You're on the air. Your question, please.
Well, I was wondering what the educational backgrounds were for both runners and what goals they plan on pursuing after they're through with their running career.
Good question. I graduated from BYU, got my bachelor's degree in psychology and with a double minor in Spanish and in coaching, and right now I'm finishing up a master's degree in exercise physiology. Done all the coursework. I've just got the thesis hanging over my head, but hopefully I'll have that done in the next 8 months. And after, down the road, hopefully 8, 9 years when I retire, I'd like to get into coaching on the college level.
How old are you now?
I'm 27.
So you'd figure you could run till you're 35, maybe 38.
Yeah, you know, you take it one year at a time, but I'd like to think that I'll still be competitive at 35, 36 years of age.
Tell us about your educational background.
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Electrical Engineering. I spent a little bit of time working on a Master of Science in that same field. Ed's more talented at meshing and organizing things.
I don't know about that.
I found that between marriage and running and school, I just wasn't organized enough to get it. And so I've postponed my endeavors as far as pursuing the graduate degree. And we'll have to see. I enjoy electrical engineering. I'd like to work in that later on.
When you're done running, and you're 31 now,
Yes, that's
so you might run 5, 6, 7 more years.
That's possible, I guess.
Okay, five, maybe more than 7. When you're done, you want to be an electrical engineer?
I enjoy that field. It'll depend upon what options are available. There are lots of things that could turn out.
If you looked at the runners on the U.S. Olympic team, are they like you? Are they well-educated guys who have college degrees and are articulate guys, or are they, some of them, street kids who happen to be fast? Do they all tend to be like you guys?
I can speak for the other marathoners. I know that Mark Conover has a master's degree in city planning, and I think Pete Fitzinger is a college graduate. I'm not sure, you know, if he's gone on to graduate work or not. And I think by and large, most of the
distance
Most of
runners,
the
I would
distance
say,
runners,
are fairly well educated. In junior college, our cross-country team had a grade point average of 3.85 as a cumulative group. And so I think that's kind of unusual amongst sports, amongst athletes.
Your question, please. You're on the air.
Yes, I'd like to ask each runner how they prepare as far as what they eat nutritionally before a race, a marathon runner versus a shorter distance runner like in the 5,000 meters.
Okay, I do something called carbohydrate loading prior to a marathon, but before I actually go into the loading phase, I go through a depletion phase of 3 days where I cut down my carbohydrates and eat more proteins. And the theory behind that is during those 3 days when I'm eating high protein, my body stores in carbohydrate are depleted, and then 3 days 3 days prior to the marathon, then I switch to almost a total carbohydrate diet. And then those 3 days prior to the marathon, when I say carbohydrate, I'm saying pasta, potatoes, things like that, complex carbohydrates, and I do that for 3 days prior to the marathon.
Day before a marathon, what do you typically eat?
Pastas, maybe pancakes for the morning, spaghetti.
Lots of sweets?
No, I try to stay away from the simple carbohydrates and do more of the complex carbohydrates.
Lots? Do you eat lots?
Well, as a marathoner, I eat, yeah, I do. I eat a lot. Not just before a marathon, but when I'm training also. I'm, you know, 3,000, 4,000 calories, you know, a day is not unusual.
What do you eat before a 5,000-meter race?
As far as carbohydrate loading, I think the determination is you're going to have to be competing for at least an hour to have need of that sort of a benefit. So for, in essence, only a marathoner is going to need to go through carbohydrate loading. The main things that we're, also you got to remember, that's just prior to a marathon that Ed does that. He's not going to do that during his normal training. Main thing we do is we try to be balanced, covering the food groups, making sure that we're taking care of ourselves physically.
The day before, though, you don't eat anything special. You just eat normally the day before.
No, just eat normally, that's right.
Okay, before you go out, do you drink a soft drink? Do you do something for quick energy, or do you just go run?
Now, you want to limit your simple carbohydrates. They're really not that beneficial to you. So the main thing before a race is you just want to eat something that's going to digest, so that you don't want to go eat a hot dog or a big steak 2 hours before your race. That's not something your stomach's going to enjoy.
Your question, please.
Yes, I'd like to know, first of all, what the world record is in the 5,000 meter and the Olympic record for Doug and then his PR. And also for Ed, I'd like to know what the world record is in the marathon and the Olympic record, and then what Ed's PR is in the marathon.
Mr. Padilla?
I don't really know exactly what the world record is in the 5,000. He's gone 12:58 and some change, probably around .3. Do you know?
Okay, now you'll have to say it. You'll have to say it again. I could.
Excuse me. 12 minutes, 58.3 or 4 seconds, something like that.
Is about the world record.
Yes.
Okay, and what's your the Olympic record is what?
The Olympic record is he ran 13:05 in 1984, and that's the current Olympic record.
Okay, and
my best time is 13 minutes 15 seconds, so I'm a little bit off that.
Okay, so you to do the world record, you'd have to go down 15, 20
17 seconds.
17 seconds.
Right.
Are you ever going to set a world record?
I think the potential is there. One problem with the distance race is you have to have conditions almost ideal to have a really, really fast race. I believe I can run faster than 13:15 given circumstances that were conducive to that, and also if I was able to get myself really ready and very well prepared at that time.
What's the world record in the marathon?
World record right now, I think, is 2 hours, 6 minutes, and 45 seconds, something
You don't know
like
either.
that. And that was set on a course that is very suspect. In other words, they're not sure if that's a real legitimate course. It might be a little bit short. There is some controversy involved in that. That's another thing with the marathon. Times vary depending upon the course.
I would think you could run faster downhill, say, than uphill.
Oh, well, definitely. There's no doubt about that. So
if
give
you-
me a nice long downhill course, and I'll take that any day over an uphill course. The Olympic record in the marathon, I think, was set by Carlos Lopez in '84. I think he ran 2:09, 2:09:13, and the time that I've run is 2 hours and 12 minutes and 48 seconds.
What would you guess it's going to take to win in Seoul?
Okay, in my preparation, I've tried to prepare myself to run close to 2 hours and 9 minutes because I really think that I'll have to run faster than the current Olympic record, maybe even run an American record in order to finish in the top three.
If you can run 2:09, will you win the race?
That's tough to say.
If somebody said right now, 2:09, you'd say, I'll take it, right?
I would take it, yeah. I
So
would take that.
You might not even run it.
And like Doug said, a lot depends on the weather. I mean, the marathon is being run, we start the race at 2:30 in the afternoon for television purposes, and it can be warm, it can be very humid at 2:30 in the afternoon in Seoul, Korea. So with that element involved, it might be slower, but it would take a 2:09 effort to medal.
We're going to a commercial break, and then we'll be back with 2 Utah Olympians. We're back with Mr. Doug Padilla, who will represent the United States in the 5,000-meter race in Seoul, and Mr. Ed Eyestone, who will represent the United States in the marathon. You're on the air. Your question, please.
Yeah, hello, Rod. This is Chris James. I'm somewhat familiar with both these runners, and I'd like to ask them a question on their philosophy on mileage. I know Doug doesn't do that many miles, but he's had obviously a lot of success, and also Ed. And I'd wonder about how many miles they run and what their philosophy is on how many miles a runner should run per week.
A runner should run as many miles as they feel comfortable doing and they can handle physically. I'm a person who's not very strong, and I have to be careful that I don't do too many miles because I have problems with getting sick and things like that. And so I'm typically 50, 60, not usually over 60 miles a week. Obviously that wouldn't do for a marathon, but I'm able to get by and be competitive at that with a 5,000 meter.
You would do more, except it would be bad training for you to do more. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I would do more if I was physically strong enough to do that. Now, one occasion I came back from Europe, I was in great shape, and I got up to 85 miles a week. And really that was a little bit too much because I wanted to try and recover a little bit from having some hard races in Europe. But until I get in really good shape, I'm not able to put in a lot of miles.
Are you in really good shape now?
I'm getting there.
Yeah, well, first of all, to me, that voice sounded fairly familiar. It sounded like the infamous Chris James, who was the winner of the St. George Marathon last year that I believe you guys televised. Well, I do a lot of running with Chris. Occasionally I'll go out on my long runs with him, and my longest runs that I do continuous are 20-milers. But in preparation for the marathon, I've been averaging, over the last 2 months, from 100 to 120 miles a week. And I need to do more than Doug does. You know, Doug's race is a shorter race. It's a faster race. He has to do more kind of intense work on the track than I do. A lot of my running is out on the roads, through the mountains, whatever, and it's at a slower pace. And so it's really important for me to get in a lot more mileage than, say, Doug.
Do your legs hold up?
That's the problem. You kind of run a fine line. And the magic is to come as close to that line as you can without stepping over that line. When you step over that line, you become injured. And I've had a few injuries in my career, usually nothing that's lasted more than a week or so.
Okay, 150 or 200 miles, you'd hurt yourself maybe in a week.
It's been done. People have done it. But, yeah, the injuries occur a lot greater the higher mileage you go. You know, once you step over 130, 140 miles a week, you really, you're passing up that fine line, and you're going to come down with injuries.
That's the main thing. I just got to be careful that I don't go over that. And every runner needs to do that. You can't say that a typical runner for this race needs to do this many miles. Also, we need to congratulate Chris James. He's just recently taken a move to the ranks of the married and is still running very well.
You're on the air. Your question, please.
Yes, I'd like to ask both of them about their personal concerns for their own safety, considering the problems between North and South Korea.
Good question. I don't think we're going to have any problems. I really don't.
Well, I'm not overly concerned about it. The one thing that I'm a little nervous about is I think they can secure the stadium where Doug will be running and the other main events. Problem is, I'm running through the streets of Seoul, Korea, and so I think if they're going to try anything, it might be, there in the streets. Now, don't worry about that, Mom. Things are going to be fine. But if there was an event that might be suspect, it might be the marathon. But I'll be wearing a flak jacket and everything, so I'm sure things will be fine.
You're both helmet and combat
Yeah,
boots
right,
and stuff.
right.
Okay. You're both married. Are you going to take your wives?
Yes, and both our wives are good.
Both
Good
of your
chance,
wives
yeah.
will go, and kids will be going.
No.
No kids. No kids. As Robert Benchley says, there are two classes of travel: first class and with children.
That's pretty close. I've never heard that, but that's good.
Okay. You're on the air. Your question, please.
Okay. How much of an effect does the media coverage and the viewing public in general have on your run, and do you expect an added effect in Seoul?
Well, for myself, it's been nice, I guess in a way it's kind of unfortunate that we only get this media attention every 4 years, but that's kind of the nature of the beast with our sport. For me, it's nice to be on programs like this. I probably won't be on the show again until 1992, but I realize that that's, part of the sport, and so I don't begrudge that at all. And frankly, for me, I'm not one of the favorites going into the event, and so for me, I really don't feel that much pressure imposed by the media. I'm in an ideal situation where I'm the dark horse. I can go in, and if I have a great performance, then it'll be great. I'll get the media attention, and if I run so-so, then it'll be, well, we weren't expecting much from them anyway.
If you do well, you're going to come back and you're going to drink milk on TV, and you're going to eat Harvey's or whatever it is on TV and make a lot of money.
I would imagine things like that would present themselves, and I have an agent who would take care of things like that, and we'll take it one step at a time.
Would you talk about media pressure?
Definitely, you've got to make some concessions. I mean, just like this program's up late.
Okay, you'd normally be asleep by now.
I'd try to be asleep before now, yes. But, these things can be good. It's good for promoting the sport. It's something that's necessary.
Okay, why are you here? Are you here because it's fun? Are you here because you think it's an obligation? Are you here because it helps Nike? Well,
really all three. I mean, it wouldn't be any fun to do it, if it'd be more difficult if you couldn't enjoy it, if you couldn't have a good time. But also, I think it's good for promoting the sport. It lets people know that there are athletes who are doing things, being successful, and that's, it's something that people can shoot for. It's a realistic goal. The typical athlete does have the potential, there's the possibility of being able to compete in the Olympic Games. And so I think it's good to do that.
We're going to take a commercial break, and then we'll be back. We're back with Mr. Doug Padilla, Mr. Ed Eyestone, who'll be representing the United States in the Olympic Games in Seoul. The Olympic Games will be televised exclusively on NBC, and that means in Salt Lake, here on Channel 2. Moreover, we're going to send some people over there, and we'll have some exclusive coverage of the Utah Olympians from Seoul. You're on the air. Your question, please.
Yes, I'd like to know why the Olympics are being scheduled so much later this year than what they were in 1984 in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles, they had them in July, and I think the reason they put them so late is due to the climate in Seoul. At least that's what I'm told. It gets very hot, it's rather humid, and there's a lot of rain, and they figured that it would be more conducive to good performances and better weather in late September.
Your question, please.
Yes, I'd just like to tell Ed Eyestone congratulations. Went to high school with him. And this is Cray Larkin from Layton, Utah.
All right, great. Thank you.
A lot of people say, gee, I knew you were going to do it. Way to go.
Yeah, it's been nice. I think that's one of the best things about making the Olympic team is that you've had so many people along your career that have helped you, that have been your fans, that have always been behind you, and to make the Olympic team, you know, you were kind of making the Olympic team for them also. And so that's been really rewarding for me.
Yeah, exactly.
When you hear about the Olympics, then you hear that some athletes maybe take drugs that are illegal or do blood doping. Have you known anybody ever who's done that?
I personally have never known anyone who's got into blood doping or the taking of anabolic steroids. It's been rumored that there are certain distance runners who get into blood doping to enhance their performance.
Okay, you take out some blood, then later you put it back in, your own blood, but it gives you extra blood, and that gives you extra performance?
Yeah, basically that's it.
Greater oxygen carrying capacity.
Yeah.
But it's illegal.
It's illegal, and unfortunately it's undetectable. And so there, at the time being, there is not a test that you can come up and say this person
They
is
say
blood
they're
doping.
close, though. They say they're very close to coming up with a detection for blood doping.
Can drugs improve a 5,000-meter performance? Can blood doping improve a 5,000-meter
In
performance?
1984, an athlete from Finland, Martti Vainio, tested positive, and he had done very well. He placed in the 10,000 and was going to compete in the 5,000, and they pulled him out because he came up positive in the 10. I believe there's the potential to receive some benefit.
Okay, it's illegal. It's something that athletes talk about. Now and then you know that it has gone on, but you've never actually known anybody. It isn't something you sit around and the guy says, oh, yeah, he stuck a leader in my arm, and boy, it really helped me out.
I think Americans, at least the distance runners that I know, we're pretty ethical. I mean, we tend to not want to put foreign substances in our bodies. We want to play by the rules, I think, by and large.
Yeah.
And I think that's fortunate, you know, that we don't feel like we need to sacrifice our own ethics in order to go for the gold medal or whatever. And I really think that a person can be totally off drugs and totally off blood doping or whatever and still perform well.
Be successful at it.
Yeah.
Does it worry you that somebody else will do it and beat you, or do you think that you can beat them even if they do it? I mean,
I think we can beat them even if they do it. The benefits aren't necessarily that predictable, and so I think they're taking a big chance. It's just not worth it.
your question, please. You're on the air.
Yes, I'd like to ask Doug and Ed who they see as the main competition in the respective events is.
Okay, in the marathon, there's a guy named Ahmed Saleh from Djibouti who the experts have picked to win the marathon. And also the Kenyans are supposed to do very well. I would look also to the Japanese to run exceedingly well because they just have the whole mentality. They live like hermits. They focus their life on this as their most important thing that's ever happened to them, and they've been sacrificing a lot to run the Olympic marathon. Plus the fact that it's being held in Seoul, Korea, and there's not a real love lost between the Japanese and the Koreans. I would look to the Japanese to just go into it, kind of bonsai it, and to run very fast times there.
It's really hard to predict any individuals. I'd say there's probably 15 or 20 people in the 5,000 who have the potential to win. It's going to be a matter of who's running well at the time. The person I've seen is running well right now is Arturo Barrios from Mexico. He would be my pick to be the most competitive, but there's also an African, Ngugi. He's inexperienced, but he's very talented. Also Eamon Martin or Jack Buckner from Great Britain. For that matter, Sydney Marie and Terry Brahm have the potential to do well given the correct set of circumstances.
You're on the air. Your question, please.
Yeah, I'm an old friend of Doug's from California, and I'd like to wish him luck and let him know that we're excited that he's representing us in the Olympics this year.
Thank you. I wish you'd said your name so I knew who it was.
Lots of people call to wish you well.
The support is great. It's really, really nice to have that kind of support. But you're going through a lot. There's a lot of pressure to do well, and as such, the support is very beneficial.
Are you worried that you'll get there and you'll get sick, that you won't be able to sleep, that you'll get the flu, that you'll get diarrhea from Korean food, something like that?
Hopefully not. I'm not really that worried about it. In the first place, it doesn't do any good to worry about that sort of thing. It's out of your control. But the other thing is, they're going to take pretty good care. The food should be good. It may be a little different, but it should be good.
You know, Henry Marsh got sick, last time out.
Yeah, in the U.S.
And he'll be in the U.S. He's going again. He'll have another shot this time. So it's something that happens.
Well, it's something, as Doug said, is totally out of your control, and so you just go over there as positive as possible, and you know, try to do your best. I'll probably be taking over my own personal pillow, so maybe I'll be sleeping a little bit better. But other than that, you know, I think they'll take good care of us.
We're out of time. We certainly wish you the best, and all Utah's proud of you. Good luck to you. The Olympics are going to be here on NBC at Channel 2. Tune in and you can watch these guys run.
Sounds good.
All right.